Muslims today are labeled as terrorists.
There was a man, for example, it's just an example that's given online, and I've read it, where a man saved a dog. So people said, oh, this man saved the dog. What did he do? The dog was on the highway, and he ran after the dog, and he saved the dog, and he actually brought it to safety. So there was an article saying, wow, man saves dog, and so on and so forth. And then they found out he was a Muslim. And what did they say? They then put a headline to say, a terrorist Muslim disturbs the peace of a dog trying to cross the road.
So this is how the media can convert day into night, black into white, hero into a villain, and a villain into a hero.
So you find some non-Muslims pick up the Qur'an and they say this Qur'an preaches terrorism. No, the Qur'an is the furthest away from terrorism. But they have not understood the Qur'an. The Qur'an has verses of history. Where history is recorded, they translate it as though those are commands for me and you. Nay, they are not commands. When Allah says, fight those who have fought you, He has addressed it to those people at the time, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
I think what's important for us is to learn and to read and to understand and to see. What has happened in the world is crime is perpetrated. If it is perpetrated by anyone who is not a Muslim, it's called a crime. And if it's perpetrated by a Muslim, it's called terrorism. I'm quite well versed with what's going on at the moment, and we feel so prejudiced against when it comes to matters of this nature. You have McVeigh. He is not called a terrorist. You have anyone who's Christian, the Sinn Féin, for example. You have the Lord's Resistance Army. You have the Christians, the Tutsis and the Hutus in Rwanda, for example. The ethnic cleansing that's happened in a lot of countries. These people have massacred millions of people, but they're not called terrorists.
We know when Hitler was invading Europe, many countries were resisting. Even France, they resisted. These French people, by the Germans, they were called as terrorists.
No one says that the British are barbaric or the Americans are barbaric when books of history record what they have done in the past.
Some form of an agreement to tarnish the image of Islam. And I never used to believe this. I used to think, these theories and all that, they're wrong. But one thing that is quite clear is Islam is still the fastest growing religion. And this people cannot understand. They asked me yesterday or the day before, why is Islam the fastest growing religion still? And I tell you the reason, when the people who studied what's going on the globe saw that as much as Islam is being portrayed in a negative way, it's still growing so fast. To be honest, words started coming out that would only depict Muslims. So terrorism is an act done by Muslims.
Islam is full of peace. It means peace. It stands for peace. And it will only teach and preach peace. And all of us need to understand that.
Look, we are approximately 2 billion Muslims on the globe. If Islam was actually a terroristic religion, nobody would exist.
This is how the media paints a picture. Unfortunately, we Muslims, we are way behind. We should know how to turn the tables over.